locally owned. I'm from Amsterdam, so they can expect good football food, baseball food, pizza, wings, and beer. You know, you can bring your kids in and, you know, they can play pool or play the video games, or they can sit with you and watch TV too, because you got the TVs in every dining room. It's such a place that you can come in with your family and sit down. And again, it's family oriented because it's family owned. When you walk in here, it's like a TV show, Cheers. Everybody knows your name. And you can expect that from in here because everybody knows everybody else.
Sideline Guys back here at SidelineGuys.recordernews.com. Adam Schinder alongside Michael Cobb. It's been a couple weeks since we've been out here talking about the NCAA tournament. And guess what? We're still talking about the NCAA tournament because right now it's about 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, so about 27 hours from when we record this. Kentucky and Louisville kick off the Final Four in New Orleans. They'll be followed by Ohio State and Kansas. Let's just start out. Your impressions of how we got to these 4 teams.
I think we got to these 4 teams. You know, it was a topsy-turvy tournament, and we ended up though with 4 major conference schools, major coaches. I don't think it's necessarily the 4 that we thought we would have gotten. I think we're each in a state of mourning over North Carolina and Syracuse not being amongst the 4. But I think it's been an exciting tournament. It should be a good weekend to close it out.
Yeah, when you talk about kind of topsy-turvy, the one team that definitely comes to mind there, the team that I don't think most people, of any of these, a lot of people would have had 3 of these teams in the Final Four. I don't think a lot of people had Louisville reaching this spot.
No, I don't think a lot of people had Louisville reaching the second round. I mean, that was a favorable upset pick in the first round. I don't think anybody really thought they were going to get through the Sweet 16, that game with Michigan State. They did. They're here. Rick Pitino found a way. He's done it a bunch of other times before. And I think that game, them and Kentucky, for a whole bunch of reasons, is the most exciting one, at least of the first 2.
Oh, yeah. I mean, really no one's mentioned Ohio State and Kansas at all this week. It's been all about that Bluegrass State rivalry. You've got Rick Pitino facing, obviously, his old program in the Final Four. This is really one of Pitino's great coaching jobs, because this is a team that, when I saw them a few weeks ago, when you saw them before the Big East tournament, they couldn't score. Mm-hmm. There's a team that really did not only did they not like a superstar go-to scorer, they just could not score the basketball consistently, but they played great defense throughout the tournament. Gorgie Jang in the middle has been a real presence blocking shots, but now you bring up him and they've got to go up against the guy who's been the big presence in the country blocking the shots, Anthony Davis, and this really hyper-talented Kentucky team.
Right. I think the thing with that Louisville team, too, is even after they won the Big East tournament, I don't think anybody was expecting a UConn-like run from last year because they didn't have that singular player like UConn did with Kemba Walker. But going up against Kentucky, it is all freshmen, and we get to this time of the season and we expect a more veteran team to win, which would be Louisville. It's really tough, though, for me to see a way that Louisville is able to pull it off against Kentucky with just the length and the talent that they have. In any game that Kentucky plays this weekend, they're going to probably have the 2 best players with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and I always call him Anthony Randolph. It's Anthony Davis, which probably going to go 1-2 in this NBA draft. Is there a way that Louisville is able to pull this off?
I mean, it's got to be with defense. They've got to put pressure on Marcus Teague, the freshman point guard. That's where Louisville has probably its biggest advantage. They've got an experienced point guard, Peyton Siva, who hasn't been scoring a lot in the tournament, but he's done everything else. And if Louisville can kind of do what they've been doing, which is throw a lot of different defense at you, they throw a press, they'll throw a matchup zone, they'll throw man-to-man at Kentucky. If they can get that team uncomfortable and then get down to a point where one of their senior leaders like Kyle Keurig has to hit a big shot, that guy's hit big shots for 4 years now. So if they can keep it close, keep it low scoring, that'll help them. If this thing gets above the mid-60s, I think Kentucky wins it in a runaway.
But I think this might be one of those first 5-minute games where within watching 5 minutes, we're going to know if Louisville has a shot. Because if Kentucky comes out and they're just doing their thing and running and gunning, it's going to be, I think it will be impossible for Louisville to keep up with them. We were watching the Kentucky game against Indiana, which I think about halfway through, I said to you, I was like, I think they're going to score 100. And I think you responded back with, I think they might score 120.
Yeah.
And they didn't get quite that high, but they clearly eclipsed 100 pretty easily. It's going to be very tough to stay with this Kentucky team, like you said, if it gets above the 60s.
Yeah, when that Kentucky team gets going, they are so efficient with what they do on offense, and it helps out the guys like Darius Miller and Deron Lamb have been making shots in the tournament. And now, even though it's the prime time game tomorrow night, the kind of unspoken about game, the two number 2 seeds that have gotten out of that right side of the bracket. You got Kansas and you got Ohio State.
Which is going to be the better game. I think both these teams, they're going to play kind of smash mouth basketball. They're going to pound it down low. I think the difference is going to be which team can get that great play from the perimeter. Because I think the internal play, the play down low, should be about equal. It's going to be who has somebody step up and propel them to the Monday night's championship game.
Yeah, you've got two teams where really their premier outside players in terms of shooting the ball have not been doing very well. William Buford has been on a long, cold streak for Ohio State, and Tyshawn Taylor's done a lot of good things inside the arc, getting to the basket for Kansas, but I think he's something like 0-17, 0-18 from 3 for the tournament. But really, you've got a couple of really intriguing matchups inside. You've got the probable national player of the year, Thomas Robinson from Kansas, against the guy who was a favorite for national player of the year heading into the year, Jared Sullinger. And then you've got the 2 point guards, Tyshawn Taylor and then Aaron Kraft, who hasn't been a great offensive player, but gets all this talk for how great an on-ball defender he is.
Right, and he is. I was watching them play in the game this past weekend. He's not even an offensive option at points. He in the game against Syracuse's zone, he pretty much never even looked at the basket. But I think that's kind of the interesting subplot for this one is with the other one, we're talking a lot about the coaches, Patino, Calipari. I think this game, though, for different reasons, these coaches have very interesting storylines for this weekend. Bill Self, with a second championship, he becomes, the Kansas guy. Completely eclipses Roy Williams as the coach there if he's able to get that second national championship. And Thad Matta, kind of the other way around. If he loses this weekend, he might start to get kind of that, he can't win the big one type label. He lost with that Greg Oden, Mike Conley team a few years ago. So I think for different reasons, it's a really big weekend for those two guys in particular.
Yeah, I think what it's going to come down to is in the game against Syracuse, Ohio State really got away with the fact that they don't have very much depth. They were able to get away with the fact that they didn't have Jared Sullinger for the last 14 minutes of the first half because of foul trouble. This is a team that really, I think if Thad Matta had his druthers, he'd play about 6 guys. If Sullinger or Kraft, who got into foul trouble late against Syracuse, if those guys get into foul trouble, or if Kansas can get the pace of the game to a little quicker where I think they want it, I don't think this Ohio State team can really last with them. But I think overall, the Ohio State team probably has more playmakers.
Right, and Sullinger this year, coming off his freshman season, Sullinger was named a first-team All-American, but he was kind of a forgotten guy for most of the year because he was saddled with foul trouble throughout the year. It's been kind of the storyline of the Ohio State season was his battle with referees that came to a head in that Syracuse game. I kind of see, though, moving to the prediction section of this, I see Ohio State staying out of the foul trouble and advancing to Monday's night's game.
Yeah, I actually do as well because I think the combination Sullinger and Deshaun Thomas has really played terrifically in this. I don't think Kansas has those 2 guys on the inside because I think those 2 guys can kind of neutralize the fact that Jeff Witte is such a good shot blocker because both of those guys are good enough at stepping back. Both of those guys, especially Sullinger, I don't think anyone saw after his freshman year, the guy who really has the ability to step out and knock down a 3-pointer.
Right. And I guess moving back to that first game that we were talking about, Kentucky-Louisville, we kind of might have given away earlier, but who do you like in that one?
Yeah, I like Kentucky. I spent this entire tournament trying to find someone who I thought could beat Kentucky. I thought it was Missouri, so I was very wrong. But at this point, I don't see really any of these teams having the ability to beat Kentucky.
So Kentucky over Ohio State then in the final?
That's my final.
Okay, I'm gonna go out on the limb. I am gonna say Ohio State over Kentucky, with the reason being that I think Sullinger has the beef down low to beat up on Anthony Davis a little bit and maybe get him in some early foul trouble.
Certainly be an interesting one. That'll be in a lot of ways welcoming party for Anthony Davis for the kind of guys, the kind of size in terms of not necessarily height but thickness that he's going to have to face in the NBA. Because if there's one thing Davis needs to do, he's going to need to put on some bulk when he gets to the NBA. But I really think Kentucky's wing players have been such a dominant factor in this tournament. I don't think Ohio State has anyone who can really step up and defend Kid Gilchrist. And so I think John Calipari, for now, gets a national championship.
For now.
But between tomorrow night and Monday night, we will see who is right, who is wrong, and then we'll be back next week. We'll start talking about high school sports. High school baseball, softball, lacrosse, track and field, tennis. They all get underway within the next few days, and we'll be talking about them all spring long. So until then, for Michael, I'm Adam. We're the Sideline Guys, and we'll see you next time. SidelineGuys.recordernews.com.